Okay, so we're talking today with Victoria Nessen. She's the principal and founder of NK&A Marketing. Uh, I've been working with NK&A for about 5 years now, and I'm a remote admin. Previous to hiring me, I believe that their admin was not remote. Is that true, Victoria?
That's correct. Our company has always had remote workforce. Everybody works from their home, but previously our employees were all in the same state.
And as you know, I'm in Utah, and NK&A Victoria is in Massachusetts. So I'm curious, Victoria, what made you decide to hire someone remotely?
Well, we had hired people previously, as I said, in the state that we live in, and it didn't always work out. And we realized we were hiring the wrong kind of person. So we wanted to really rethink the position and think about the talents and skills we needed. And what we realized was proximity wasn't an issue. It was really about the person's skill set that we were most interested in. And so that broadened our search tremendously. We've been in business 20 years, and this idea of remote working has been in our company since day one. So the idea of having somebody not in close proximity was actually not that challenging. It just, what was shocking to us was, oh, we can actually do this. We don't have to be worried about meeting with a person face to face. We don't have to worry about interviewing them face to face. We can actually do this completely remotely. And that was a big game changer for us.
Yes, and I feel like NK&A discovered that maybe before the rest of the world did, because I know with the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of companies are kind of moving that way. So
yeah, I think we were enacting and working remotely from day one, but we didn't actualize, if that makes sense. We didn't realize the benefit of that, and that we had this advantage over most companies in that we worked remotely. And the impetus for that was 90% of the time we're going to our clients' offices. So it never made sense to make the investment in an office. And I think now with COVID-19, companies are realizing, oh, I don't know that I actually need a physical location all the time.
yes, thereby opening up an opportunity for workers who want to be remote.
Exactly. Yep. And today the technology, is tremendous, and you have been an impetus for finding a lot of technologies that makes working remotely much easier for us. And I think that as time has evolved, the process has become seamless and almost beneficial at times.
Mm-hmm. So on that score, what technologies would you think that remote workers have to be efficient in?
So whatever suite you're using for creating your documents, storing your documents, and communicating. So we use a Microsoft suite. So being proficient and understanding that suite and being able to get that suite to work for you is critical. I think having good IT consultants who can help you look at how you integrate technologies and use them. Mm-hmm. And then candidly, having somebody like you who's fearless in exploring and figuring out how technologies can solve communication problems or iteration problems or version control becomes important. And setting that baseline for the company. So we have rules about how files are saved and where they're saved, how they're named. One person is in control of all of that. We all have access to it, but there's one person, Eliza, our remote admin, who we dial 911. Oh my God, I can't find this. And you're responsible for that. And so that peace of mind that one person is really the technician and can find and solve everything is critical. So I would say pick your platform and then pick your technology expert internally.
Okay. So when you decided to hire someone remotely, how did you go about it? Or if someone was looking for a remote position, how would they find you or find a company that was hiring?
So I'm going to start with the first question because it's a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
When you're thinking about hiring remotely, for us, we're all about relationships. And so we went to our network, and there were certain people we went to and said, hey, we're thinking about hiring somebody remotely. Who do you know who might fit this role? And we really went to those individuals who we felt knew us, understood us, and could read the job description and say, oh, I know a person who culturally will mesh with that company. So that's how we went about doing it. The question of if you're a remote worker and you want to find a company, I don't know how you'd reverse engineer that. My first thought might be think about what's culturally important to you in a company. So do you want a company that's really focused on process and procedure, or a company that is about transparent communication? How they present themselves to you and how they interview you in the process is reflective of how they are as a company to work with. So I'd be very discerning if they're on time, their communication is good, they have good mastery of technology when you're on conference calls and things like that. I think that would be a thing. But how you find the opportunities, you know, we've been talking about this with you. It's a challenging question. And I think companies have to be thoughtful. The challenge I would put out there is for companies to be thoughtful about what their needs are and being explicit if they're open to remote working. And we're going to see a lot more of that.
Yes. Suppose that the company you work for currently, you have not been remote in the past, but you can see that there's a possibility that you could be. How would you suggest that a worker approach a supervisor about that possibility?
I think that everybody's tuned into the radio station of what's in it for me. And if you're a remote worker and you approach your supervisor with the attitude of what's in it for me, you miss the opportunity to explain what's in it for them. So tuning into their radio station about what's in it for them, how will they see it, is the first approach. And then I would think through what are the roadblocks, being very realistic about what could be some of the problems that you would face and how you'd solve those problems. You might not have all the answers today, but showing that willingness to think through a problem, address it, be at the forefront of thinking these things through, I think would be something that would help a supervisor see, oh, this person really wants to work remotely and takes it seriously, but also understands we're going to have to figure this out as we get going.
Right, so more of a thoughtful approach before you even approach them.
Yeah.
Okay. When you were looking for a remote worker, what was the most important thing to you?
Oh, can I have 3?
Yeah.
Okay, so cultural fit. By far, the most important was somebody who complemented me and my business partner, Dwight. The mistake we had been making in the past is we were hiring mini-me's, and we didn't need another one of us. We needed somebody who had the skill sets we didn't have, who enjoyed research, protocol, process and procedure, things we rail against. So we really needed that person who would help sort of set us up and make us successful in the things that we aren't successful in. Or I shouldn't say or aren't successful in, but really struggled to do. So that would be the first thing, is the cultural fit. The second thing is making sure that you're realistic about what your expectations are. Realizing that it's an evolutionary process. As you know, Eliza, we frequently come to you and say, is this working? How do we need to reinvent this? What do we need to do differently? So that willingness to always evolve. And then the third thing I think is discipline. You know, you need to be disciplined to say, these are our benchmarks. This is how we're working, and hold yourself accountable.
So suppose a remote worker is going to an interview. What questions would you recommend they ask a potential employer to make sure it's the right fit?
Oh, that's a great question. I think first, as a remote worker, write down what's important to you. When you think back on the jobs you've had, who are the people you've worked best with, that you've enjoyed the most, and what were their qualities and attributes? So, for example, if you really enjoyed a boss who was very hands-off and said, I need X, let me know how we're going to get there. Ask questions about how projects are handed over. Ask them, what do they like? What kind of communication do they prefer? Do they prefer phone calls? Do they prefer emails? Do they want to be updated daily? Do they want to be involved? At what level do they want to be involved in the decision making? So you want to ask the questions that aren't leading and aren't yes or no, but open up for dialogue for you to explore what's important to you. And I remember actually, Eliza, when we were interviewing you, you asked that question, what's your preference for communication? And I remember thinking that was a really good question. You asked me, do you prefer to talk on the phone? Do you prefer to have emails? Do you prefer text? And we, in that conversation, fleshed out that, you know, emails are for summaries, phone calls are for important in the moment decision making, and texts were for like 911s, right? I need this input immediately. And it helped me as well. And so, you know, as we're talking, I'm thinking one of the other things is by asking really good questions, you're going to help that supervisor or leader think and evoke them, help them think and be a little bit evocative in thinking about, wait, how is this going to work? What will happen? And so really going back to where were your successes in your job? Who were the people that were most successful? What were the kinds of things you liked? And asking questions to reveal if that company emulates those kinds of positive situations. And even maybe asking about things that are negative. For example, if you had a micromanager boss, you might ask a question, you know, as a leader, do you like to get involved in all of the little detailed decisions, or do you prefer to stay at a higher level? So it's not a leading question, but how the answer is revealing to you.